Right now, gay marriage has its day as the U.S. Supreme Court in a case that could or could not bring sweeping changes from coast to coast. We're going to peel back the answers and the questions at the High Court, as well as the questions being asked across America tonight. And next, from Newtown to filibuster in just over 3 months, as the Senate prepares for its first full votes on gun safety since Sandy Hook, 2, now 3 Republicans threatened to block the bill and block the votes both sides said they wanted up or down. And later, 4 years ago, he shocked the Big Apple, nearly knocking off Michael Bloomberg. While spending just a fraction, and a small fraction, of what the mayor did. We're going to go 101 with Bill Thompson. That's a lie. We have the whole table. And we're going to talk about his next run, this run for Gracie Mansion. Good evening, everybody, and welcome to RFL. I'm Richard French. As you can tell, a full house here tonight. Thanks for joining us on this Tuesday evening, March 26th.
The Bible says, one man, one woman, till death do us part, period. No exceptions.
I'm personally vested in the outcome of this case. I want to get married in the state that I grew up in.
Same-sex marriage, the issue, it has gone from the fringes of American politics to center stage, in, at least by political standards, a tidal wave fashion in the velocity of this issue, how fast this thing has moved. And all eyes, obviously, on the highest court of the land today as justice decides what comes next. Now, the emotion outside the courthouse today contrasting with the businesslike approach inside the Supreme Court. That as the court seemed to zip through the morning's hearing. And for the latest, we're going to bring in senior political correspondent Andrew Whitman.
And Rich, lots of questions asked by the justices this morning as America again reads the court's tea leaves to try to figure out what they mean. We begin with ABC's Tamon Bradley outside the court.
In oral arguments today, the 9 justices seem divided over the issue of same-sex marriage, but united that perhaps the matter shouldn't even be before the court. At issue, California's Proposition 8, the 2008 ballot initiative that amended the state's constitution to ban same-sex marriage. The court's liberal justices questioned the rationale for restricting gays and lesbians from marrying.
Can you think of any other rational basis for a state using sexual orientation as a factor in denying homosexuals benefits?
The conservative justices wondered how same-sex marriage could be a right guaranteed under the Constitution.
When did it become unconstitutional to exclude homosexual couples from marriage?
When did it become unconstitutional to prohibit interracial marriages?
Justice Anthony Kennedy, who could cast the deciding vote in the case, seemed to think the topic is out of the court's bounds. He also expressed empathy for children with gay parents.
The voice of these children. There's some 40,000 children in California. They want their parents to have full recognition.
Sandra Spear and Kristen Perry are 2 plaintiffs in the case. Their son Spencer spoke outside the court.
We love our family, and we look forward to the day when we will be treated equally, just like our neighbors' families.
While the justices heard the arguments, there was an almost carnival-like atmosphere outside.
Marriage is so important that it deserves to be decided by the people, not by unelected judges.
Tomorrow, in a separate case, the justices...
And the court's decision expected sometime before June. There is a lot riding on today's case in ways that could impact you and marriage laws where you live. The court could legalize same-sex marriage everywhere in the country, or on the opposite end, it could rule that state bans on same-sex marriage are in fact constitutional. The court could also focus solely and exclusively on marriage in California. The most likely outcomes, according to our guest tonight, Mark Furnish, the court strikes down Proposition 8 out of California. It upholds the law or punts, essentially delaying any specific ruling on the issue. Rich?
All right, Andrew, thank you. And joining us tonight, the aforementioned Mark Furnish, criminal defense attorney who's argued before the Supreme Court, and he's also professor at Brooklyn Law. Dominic Carter, political journalist and author. Bill Thompson, former New York City comptroller and current Democratic candidate for mayor. We'll be talking about that. Chris Shays, former Republican congressman from Connecticut, who's got an opinion on everything. And Mark Whitman, Andrew Whitman, who you've already met. I changed the names up there. All right. First off, are you more surprised that they even took this case in the first place? Or are you more surprised that in 2013, this is now at the Supreme Court? Because in 2003, I think, we had 40 states, we still have 40 states don't even recognize civil unions, and we only had a handful 10 years ago that even recognized civil unions. The pace of this thing is incredible, forget even politically, by court standards.
Yeah, the answer is yes to both. I'm surprised that they took it, and I'm partly surprised that they took it because it's gotten there so fast. Ordinarily, issues like this, especially portentous ones like this, have a lot of time to percolate, ripen, mature through the lower courts, through the democratic processes across the United States. This is the antithesis of that. And no matter how fast it's moved to the court as an institution doesn't move fast. And I don't expect some kind of sweeping, groundbreaking, radical, declarative ruling in this case. I suspect if it stays in the court, and I think it will, because I don't think they took it just to punt it out, I think it'll be a measured, incremental ruling that will sustain the lower court's ruling, the lower federal court ruling, striking down Prop 8, but do it in a narrow way.
So just for California, let's say.
And California and similarly situated states,
okay.
yes.
And I know the last time we talked about this, whether it was health care or whatever, you're like, Rich, you read too much into it. But when you read the comments, it sounds like these justices were forced, at the end of a gun to take this case, that why are we hearing this? Why shouldn't this be decided at the state level? My gosh, this is so premature. Look at other issues. But they chose to take it.
Well, 4 choose to take it. Clearly, Kennedy, who would be the swing vote, had great trepidation about taking it, but as the quote at the outset indicated, he's got some concerns about how this impacts innocent people in California. And Sotomayor expressed some reservations about taking it. But if they kick it out, that means Prop 8 stands, and Sotomayor isn't going to be comfortable with that. I do not expect them to pour this out of court. Clearly they're in a pickle, but they'll find a way out of it, and I suspect that the Solicitor General's argument on behalf of the U.S. really gave them a middle ground. And if you look back over other civil rights issues and their history in the court, it's been gradual. It hasn't been sweeping. And I expect that this will be a middle ground that shows that the court as an institution is generally sympathetic to the idea of same-sex marriage, but will give other states some latitude and leeway as to how they want to deal with it.
I think that Justice Roberts' decision as it related to health care bill, for a lot of people, it was as much about the institution as it was about the issue. Do they run the risk, the Supreme Court here, as much as the country, especially generationally, is going in one direction? If it comes back to say, never mind on this, they do more harm than good by even taking this thing up in the first place?
Well, you'd like to think that because they took it, they will make a decision. At the same point, I mean, there is another case in front of them tomorrow. What about the possibility of them taking a pass on Prop 8 and then paying attention to something that really affects the entire country? So, I mean, I think that there's that possibility that they could do that also, and, punt on one and make a decision on the other. And that's the, in one form or another, I think everybody wants to see a decision made. Obviously, there are a lot of us who would like to see them, strike this proposition down. But at the same point, that possibility to be able to say, we're going to take a pass on this and make a decision on the other stands there also.
And one of the reasons why that's true, and this is what makes the marriage issue a little bit different from any other civil rights controversy that's alleged civil rights controversy that's ever come before the court. Domestic relations, marriage, family, this is a traditional area of state concern. So I could see the scenario that you just posited very well unfolding. DOMA, the federal statute that's going to be argued tomorrow, this is way, way outside the realm of what the federal government belongs meddling in. Proposition 8, unpopular to some of us as New Yorkers, but that's something that citizens of a state, in this case not legislators of a state, but citizens of a state can do. They did make the argument,
though, that the court weighted in on interracial marriages, and then their point was, hey, other countries had set precedent.
Interracial marriage is in a discriminatory, clearly invidious classification that violates the 14th Amendment. That's the intersection of marriage and racial equality. This is something that's really much more squarely within the domain of the states, in my view anyway.
We're going to get into, later on in the program, the social aspects of this, but just from a time standpoint, when you left Washington, if somebody said in 2013, there would be a president who would fully embrace gay marriage, that the Supreme Court's going to take it up as state after state are taking it up. I mean, do you believe how fast this issue has moved? I mean, you've seen a lot of hot-button issues in your time in Washington, but I don't think from a societal standpoint the amount of change this fast.
I'm just grateful to see it. I voted for the Defense of Marriage Act. I didn't think Texas in the 90s would accept this. and you're seeing an evolution that I think is going to be quite remarkable. So I'll be happy to see the law overturned and get on with it.
Interesting. Now, we're going to be talking a lot more about, as we said, the really social aspects of this whole debate that's going on right now. And as we said, it's just beginning for the court's justices, and it will also continue our debate online. Here is our question for you at home. How do you hope the High Court rules on same-sex marriage? You can go to our Facebook page and also sound off on Twitter. Please join the debate yourself. Now, we're going to have much more, as I said, on this debate, including the impact on society as a whole and our politics surrounding this subject as well here. That's a big part of it. That's coming up later in the hour. But up next, we're going to be talking to Bill Thompson on his campaign for New York City mayor. We'll be right back with that after this.